Okay, the Google machine, the Google overlords, or I should say, well, YouTube overlords are the Google overlords. Anyway, I'm being told I'm live, so I presume that I am here. Happy Friday. Hope everyone is doing amazing. Oh, yeah. So I thought what we could do today is take a post and I clicked on it, or I linked to it in the show notes. I'll link to it here as well. Friend of the channel and forum member Brian Smith posted there an attempt at someone's calling me now, an attempt at a campaign starter in the forums. I will link to that post. Campaign starter forum post. There we go. I'll pin this in case to it, and it's also in the show notes, and I'll probably add it as a comment because people seem to see comments more than they actually open up the show notes kind of description parts on YouTube. So that'll be in various places you want to look at it. I took that, and at first I was just going to read it here in the Google Doc, but I actually decided against that. I brought it all. I didn't really edit it at all. I just brought it into Ouija so I could get the elements out a little bit. Brian, I'm glad you're here. Hey, Krister, maybe you can explain. So the first thing is this DC-11. Are you using kind of index card RPG? Is this one of those things where you're setting up the difficulty challenge rating, whatever, for the area? That's what I took that to mean, but if it means something else, let me know so that I don't go off in the wrong direction. I mean, it doesn't really matter. DC-11. Okay, I was right. 10 would be 50. Technically 11 is basically 50%. And I know it seems unintuitive that way, but the average of a D20 is 10.5, so you round up 11, so you've got a 50-50 chance of hitting that DC, which makes it reasonable for a starter, for your first level, I presume, first level folks, and of course getting any kind of modifiers, any kind of bonuses, any kind of help will make it even, a more than 50% chance. So that's a totally reasonable base level for anything we're going to find. So I'm just going to read this first, and I did a little bit of formatting, but I didn't change any other content. This is for session 1, The Dragon Slayers. A frontier settlement in the wild north country where the long road breaks from the Silver River, threads along the mountains, and reaches the Great Forest before turning south towards the wetlands. Built of stone and wood, fortified towers and towers and walls keep the place safe from all manner of wandering beast and bandit. Built up from the foundation of an ancient settlement left to mankind as the elves retreated to watch the mountains from their forest. That's a great line there. If they even watched at all anymore. Some small settlements exist among the hills at the foot of the mountains, but little is known of the area as it is infrequently traveled. The forest itself almost never explored. The nearest large settlements are on the why someone's people calling me? Why are people calling me now? The forest itself almost never explored. The nearest large settlements are on the other side of the two large mountains from which the Silver River flows away into the lowlands. There is a path through them, and some caravans do supply the keep from time to time. But they are self-sufficient. They are a self-sufficient lot and can hunt and craft many of the necessary items for survival. Each summer, as a show of goodwill, a bazaar is held with all manner of goods being imported and traded. This is the time the residents can make coin and the keep resupplies. Arrows and bows are finely made here, as are almost any wooden good you could wish. Expertly carved figurines as well. Animals from the area are often sold to visitors, and the daring may lead excursions into the forest, though they never yield the heroic tales visitors hope for. So first of all, this is a nice kind of overview. I almost wonder if it's too much. I mean, it really depends on your use case. If you're writing it for yourself, you're writing it for publication. If I were writing this okay, this is going to be for publication, I'm not even sure that I would get into some of this stuff. Not that it's not interesting, but I'm not sure how relevant it'll be depending on what happens going forward. But it's you get the kind of backdrop of the area. We're situated. We understand this corner of the world and sort of what's going on, which I think is good. So next up, the keep. The keep has a guard barracks, a tavern, central clearing, two large towers with ballista and a bridge connecting them, archery range, and stables, and this is my typo, a house for the lord and nobles. So there we have, now we've got kind of the full picture overview of kind of what the settlement is like. I don't know if this is a Keep on the Borderlands style thing where basically the settlement is the keep. So remember in Keep on the Borderlands, I think everything is kind of inside the keep, all the rooms and everything inside. Or if there's an outer settlement and then there is a keep within that settlement. I'm not sure, Brian. Maybe you can clarify. It's really something more for if you're running that or when you're running it, just to kind of clarify, is this basically your Keep on the Borderlands, in which case everything is inside the central citadel, or if it's one of those things where there's kind of a walled exterior and then some homes and things, and then in the middle of there or somewhere inside that outer settlement is this kind of inner settlement. Okay, Brian says mostly self-contained. Okay, that's kind of how it reads. Arrival. Upon your arrival, the bazaar has just begun for the day. Carts and people bustle into the keep. Bright tapestries and stands are packed together in the central clearing of the keep. The guards are clearly a bit overwhelmed, but seem to work efficiently under the instructions of their superior. Several guards can be seen on the bridge and towers above. One tall guard with graying hair and an eye patch tells vendors where to set up, while the others check the goods at the gate. Come to buy, come to sell, come to work, come to meet someone, come to explore, come to steal, come for rest. How long will you stay? Kind of that stuff. So we get a background information of what's happening on the day. I think one thing that might be helpful, Brian, at some point is, who are the player characters? Are they supposed to be locals? Do they know all this stuff, like all the background? Are they familiar with it because they're from here? Are they arriving for the bazaar? Like, what do you envision in their situation? Because one thing you can do is, if you have a clear point of view. Now, oftentimes, again, depending on what you're developing for, they don't give you that, or they don't make the assumption, right? They keep, I guess, for the Keep on the Borderlands, they do make the assumption that you're from elsewhere. You are traveling up to the gates of the keep, and kind of here it is. You're not from there. But I think it's a good thing to keep in mind. Are they from here? What do you envision in terms of the backgrounds of the player characters? And that way you can mold sort of the information that you're putting in the document, kind of what's available to them. So that, is this their umpteenth bazaar? And so it's all old hat, in which case the guards doing their kind of guard thing, it's not, doesn't really, it's like, oh yeah, it's familiar to them. Or is it something that, not that you would hand wave away, but on one hand, you could say you're familiar with the guards and they know you, and you're watching everybody set up and the guards are hollering at them. Whereas if they're coming from outside, then this could be a role-playing moment with the guards asking them these questions. Are you buying? Are you selling? Are you working? Like what the deal is. Brian says, letting the characters decide, so this is kind of loosey-goosey. I almost recommend not letting them decide. And the reason I say is for this kind of starters. One, if you put them all, it's kind of that same, hey, J-Man. It's kind of that similar thing to, like, not giving them choices that you don't want the answers to. Don't give them choices you kind of don't want them to have. And I guess what I'm saying is, either I would say have them decide as a group, and that way you can have that kind of alignment as they're a group. Either they're locals or they're from far away. Just that it cuts down on, unless it's something you want, which is that, like, oh, I don't know this guy. Why am I teaming up with a stranger? Blah 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 blah. Brian says, I don't want to make their character for them. Well, I'm not suggesting that, but I'm suggesting you could say you guys are all travelers from whatever. And I think that's kind of in some ways, an easy way of saying, so you already have the setup of, there's a bazaar and people are coming. I presume merchants and caravan types are rolling in here to set up for the bazaar. And their characters could easily be guards and folk who have basically completed they were hired to bring some folks to this bazaar and their goods safely, and they have done so. So they're released with a little bit of coin, which could just be whatever their leftover starting coins are, or you could give them a kit and each give them basically the same amount of gold or silver or whatever your currency is, and saying, okay, you guys are kind of together. But it gives you that sort of unity of the group's purpose. You're not saying who each individual character is, but I think you can, and often I think should, kind of turn the situation, give them some starting kind of unity, direction, glue to kind of keep them together. This isn't to say like you are Bob the thief and you are Greg the fighter. No, but I think it's fine to say, hey, you guys are all on this caravan trip and it just ended and here you are, and that. Or you guys are all locals and you've always wanted to do something and this is what it is. You've known each other since kids. Like, I think it's totally fine to do that. And I think often the players, I know I appreciate, to me, I don't look at it askance, like, oh, the GM's trying to tell me what to do. I'm like, great, I have some direction. I have some concept that I can start, building off of. Okay, so now we've been introduced to this kind of sights and sounds. Now onto the bazaar itself. You smell cooking meat, though you don't see the source. Metal clangs as an armor arranges her goods. Pottery's on display. Someone is spouting a long list of health benefits for their tonic, or their tonic will imbue you with. The snores of an elderly man tear through your ear as you see him slumped over a table covered in small cheese wheels. A pompous-looking man with a thin mustache and rapier glares at you as he struts towards you, expecting you to clear out of his path. Perhaps there's time to take in the sights. That would be it kind of works both ways, but usually take in the sights, S-I-G-H-T. But it could also be sights as in take in the locations. It works either way. As you explore the bazaar, you hear a horn blow, and those who know the sound look up from their business towards the gate where a group of hunters enter on horseback. The leader is a lean young man with sharp eyes that scan the crowd eagerly, looking on yours for a moment. And in his grasp is a large burlap sack stained with crimson. People move towards him as he throws the sack to the ground, revealing the head of a gray lizard, roughly the size of a large wheelbarrow. The thing's tongue slides out between sharp fangs as its jaw hangs open. The crowd cheers as the riders dismount. Several join the party as they make their way to the tavern. The head is scooped up and brought along. It seems that most are taking this time to rest and eat as the bazaar activity dies down. Shouting, laughter, and music is flooding out of the tavern as smoke drifts from its roof. So I think the one thing with this, or a couple things here, and again, this is not like good, bad, right? It's just kind of like, well, what do I think? I think there's a lot of time that's passed in these couple of paragraphs. And I think you could, one I think you can do is introduce some folks. Like there's a lot of kind of generic people. And again, this is an overview, right? This is not like the final write-up, but I think that you can have some of these people, name them, because they could be, we're talking about factions and whatever else you might have going on in these adventure elements, and you can start with this. Give some people some names. You have the pompous looking guy with the thin mustache and the rapier, seems very villainous, or at least a jerk. Give him a name, and who are they? And then that sets up a much more interesting potential encounter. In fact, later on down the line, you could have them, give them some time in the bazaar. I'm not sure, and this is one of those things too you have to be careful of. You could give a lot of this as just kind of backstory to the PCs, to the players, right? So I could see taking this up and starting wherever the kind of real adventure starts, and not having them kind of be in the bazaar, because you could end up in a situation. This actually happened to me and it's not happened to me. It wasn't a bad thing. At Claricon, was it the first year? Might have been the first year. I think it was first year. So not this past Claricon, but the one before that. Played in a game. It was a fun game, but the GM was running essentially a module. I don't remember the name of the module. You could probably look back and find the stream from a couple years ago if you're interested. And I think the one issue was that he was essentially just running the module, but the module was not a one-shot kind of module. So we had 4 hours, and the module is clearly, at least from how we were playing it, felt like this is something that was supposed to be at least a few sessions. And so we end up in these situations where maybe and this is not really a problem here, right? But I'm just gonna bear with me for a minute, where we're in a situation where we're coming to a town. We've got some like pre-gen kind of characters. I think they were pre-gens. And and then he's like, okay, and now you're kind of in the town. What do you want to do? And the thing is, we don't have anything to do. Like for us, we're trying to get to we want to get into the mix. And the module has this kind of slow, like, oh, you can kind of muck around and do stuff, and then things will kind of slowly building. But we're just trying to get into the mix. Now, granted, this is not a one shot. This is for potentially a whole campaign. But you can end up in a situation where you're waiting for the players to engage with some stuff, and the players, because they're new to this campaign, they're new to this world, they're new to everything, and they don't have any goals yet. We don't have anything to engage with. So you could put some people in this bazaar, and you're thinking as a GM, like, oh, they're going to go check out all these stands, and maybe they'll wake up the cheese guy, and maybe they'll do the stuff, and the players are going to be there going, I don't want any cheese. I'm not, oh, the guy with the rapier glares at me. All right, I'll move out of the way, I guess, or maybe, the thing is too, if a player was like, I fight him, I think if I was another player, I'd be just like, gee, come on. Can we not do this now? Session 1, can we not just fight the guy because he's giving us a mean look? But whatever, right? You don't have much of a basis to decide what you're going to do yet. So you as the GM leaving open the space of, the bazaar with all this kind of fun little, maybe you got little tidbits, little scenes that you've got, and the party's just kind of like, I don't have anything to do. I think actually maybe even a better example of this is I was in a very short-lived play-by-post game. It was a Shadow of the Demon Lord, and it was a post-apocalyptic game. And the DM started with this really hot situation. We were on the back of a truck, and we're being marauders are chasing us. We're trying to get to this walled village, and we had to man the guns and do some kind of funny little action movie things where they're coming alongside and they're trying to jump in the truck, and we're beating them off, kicking them out. Kicking them back onto the road and whatever. Okay, yeah, that's fine. We get to the settlement, and he just kind of opened up the settlement, and the game kind of died. It was just nobody, everyone's just kind of like, well, I guess I go here. I don't know. Like, just nobody had any impetus, and that's because even though we had this kind of hot start, and it was like, it's like we got to this location, and we just didn't have any context as characters or for anything to do. So the game just kind of foundered because we were all just like, I don't know what to do. So just be careful when you kind of really early on, you sort of open up these things, and you may have all these great ideas of what your party's going to interact with, and you might have some players like, ooh, I'm into all that stuff. But you also might have a bunch of players who are just like, give me the goods. And I don't necessarily know how to get there if you don't put me there. Brian says, I guess the players wander around hitting a few booths or whatever, then the DM can cut in with the return of the hunters. Yeah. So I think maybe if Brian, if you are doing this to distribute to others, you could probably make a note like, hey, cut to the hunters. What if the party isn't interested in anything, right? Just have the hunters come whenever, because the party might get involved with this stuff or they might not. And of course you can have, which I think is going to happen, is the things are going to start happening to them specifically, but whatever. And of course they might end up in the tavern anyway, because that's where, when in doubt, right, where are fantasy RPG players going to take their characters? They're going to go to the tavern. So that's what we have next, Broken Arrow Tavern. As you push through the entrance, you notice a long central table with the hunting party telling about the trip and drinking heartily. A group of older men poke at the lizard head on the table. They mention how wonderful a hunter the young man has become. Some are shooting arrows into a hay bale in the back corner, laughing as arrows miss and stick into the wall. A woman searches under tables looking for something she has lost. They shout, "Somebody give a toast." Hands grab you and thrust you up in front of the young man. They await your response. So this is one of those things that I'm always a little bit funny about, because why are they grabbing you? Like, what is it about you that you just kind of wander? I mean, assuming you're not in the tavern earlier, right? We're just going to make the assumption that you don't go to the tavern early. I could definitely see, depending on when this happens, that the party could just go to the tavern first and be there when the hunters arrive. So, right, keep that in mind, right? The party may well get to the tavern before the hunters do. So you'll want to have at least a note, or if you're running this, just make a note of, oh yeah, they're in the tavern already. I'm not sure why they're thrusting you up front. I get it I think from what this scenario wants is you to interact with and the young man. Again, give them, I know that and I think I even mentioned this form, like, who is this young man and why is this young man at the kind of the center of everything? And I think if he is I think, Brian, you mentioned in the forms, like a noble son, just, it'll be kind of obvious. I have a feeling that someone would call out, "Oh, it's the son of the Duke is back," or like something to give. Just, I feel like that it's set up as this kind of mystery of who is this young man, and just let us know. I think it would be pretty obvious if they're the son of the nobles, just the way the entourage and the way the guards, and again what people would say. Just let us know. And why are the players being pushed into this situation? I think what you could do to make it a little bit more fun is just say, somebody give a toast, and then just give some space for the party to do something about that. Just have some beats where everyone's just kind of fumbling around. And then if somebody in the party pipes up and does a toast, then that can be, if you're tracking, I don't know how this is going to work, if you're tracking some kind of rapport with the young man, with this whatever princeling or whoever they are, then that could just be an uptick of like, oh yeah, if the party ends up giving a toast, then they'll already kind of be in the good graces of this lordling, if it even matters. But that makes it almost kind of a comic moment if you just, somebody give a toast, and the whole place goes silent. Everyone just kind of starts looking at their hands, going like, and then if nobody responds, you can have some other NPC finally say something about the toast, and then it's over, and then that's fine. But it because then you got to figure out like, okay, they pull the party, like which one of the party. I know you could roll a dice saying, oh, who did they pick on the party? But I just think like just let it be this moment, and then I don't even know how you would write this up. I mean, you could write it up just like this, but I'm saying if leaving kind of this beat open, I suppose just write it up like that. Again, if you're doing it for someone else, if it's just for yourself, then just make a mental note or write down somewhere. Just let it be in a moment. Like, I don't think you have to be so, I guess, kind of on the nose of like, here is the person you need to connect with, but you can if you want. So after this, and then so just, I guess, to close the loop on this, assuming they do it or don't, like, again, in the way this is written, then what are the consequences of that? They get, +1 on reaction rolls or if you're keeping track of some kind of reaction already, hey, they get a +1 because they gave the toast. Also, too, it's just kind of funny. It could be a funny moment, but it can also be awkward in a bad way, as if the party, they're all new to this area, or even if they're not, they don't know who this person is to give a toast. They weren't on the hunt. It would be one thing if they were on the hunt and they could say something about what this guy has done, say, hey, a toast for the thing, and he fought the thing and brought back the thing, but they weren't there. So it makes it even weirder why they would say, you, who was not even there with this thing and I don't even know who you are, you make a toast for this guy who just came back from this quest that you don't even have any idea about. It adds a lot of weirdness. Like I said, it could be there in a fun moment, though it is still weird if he just came back from clearly a successful hunt and nobody knows how to toast the guy or what to say. But then at least it's kind of has a little bit of a comic thing, and not this like almost asking the players like, you who do have no knowledge of this world, say something meaningful that may or may not affect the rest of your campaign, or at least your relationship with this particular person, with what you say next. Go. This is some reasonably fresh coffee for the working man. And now that things really heat up, with a distant screech alerts some patrons, and soon cries of dragon flicker through the crowd. You and the young man leap out the door to see a large dragon approaching the keep. Everybody who is able defend from the towers, and when we bring it down, we'll finish it. He looks at you, fire in his eyes, and nods towards the ballista before dashing off to clear the bazaar. Again, I'm not sure why why this guy is just keen on getting your participation. He's got a whole thing of hunters. Why is he looking at you? You there, random dude by the bar. I'm going to look at you with fire in my eyes. And it's also that thing where it's kind of written like there's one person, but you have potentially, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 6 people there. And are you guys all, I mean, it could be a comic moment. You all try to dive out of this door and you get stuck. Like who is diving out the door? Exactly. So I think it's just, I think I said this in my forum post, to me, just open it up, right? The call dragon goes up. This guy who, the young man who I'm guessing I should call, like, I'm just going to assume he's a lordling. He's going to show some leadership. So he's going to show his quality here. He's going to get his guys together, or his entourage, whomever they may be, and he's going to start giving out orders, probably yelling, right? He's going to head out there. He's yelling to the ballistas. Now, it's been set up that there are plenty of guards at the fort. So I'm not sure why the party, who is not affiliated with the guards of the fort, suddenly need to be manning the ballistas. Now, I understand that from a gameplay perspective, this is kind of like, some of this fun ways that we as low-level nobodies can interact with the dragon, but we just got through, well, not just in terms of maybe playing time, but we've got in the description here coming up, where is it? I missed it. Hold on a sec. Where did I talk about the guards? 2 central towers, a guard barracks. Yeah. Forest, some small settlements built from wood and stone. Didn't it say somewhere where there are guards on the wall and guards here and there and guards everywhere? I guess ultimately my impression, and I'm sorry I can't seem to find it. Oh, there it is. Several guards can be seen on the bridge and towers above. So where do those guards go? And if the ballista are up in these towers, that you just have to kind of calculate in. Well, they got to get into those towers, up to those towers. I'm presuming they just don't let people in to them. Like, what's happening. I don't see it. It just seems a weird. This was another. I think to go back on my own an experience for a tale for a tale. I've mentioned this at least a couple times, but I played in another very short lived. I played in a lot of very short lived play by post, play by Discord games. Unfortunately, based in Assyria, and I think this might have been the same GM as the post-apocalyptic game using Shadow of the Demon Lord, and we were told that we were characters, and we had to have we was like, hey, come up with a reason why you're going to Nineveh to try to petition the king for something, the King of Kings for something, and I had created this kind of magic usury sort of guy who was an astronomer, and he wanted a new astronomical tower to look at the heavens and calculate all this and that nonsense, and that's why he was coming. So we get into this audience with the King of Kings, and suddenly these assassins attack, and then right after that, then there's kind of an assault on the city. And we're an astronomer, and I forget what the other guys are, level 1. There are guards and soldiers everywhere, but the king's like coming to us and saying, "You must defend the city." And I'm thinking, I'm an astronomer, man. Like, what do you got all these soldiers? You think I'm going to be the one? And it was the GM was trying to make this kind of fun, gameable moment, but like we're level 1. I mean, we're adventurers because we know we're going to go on adventures, but we're not expecting. Of course, I know that we're going to go into dangerous places, and my astronomer is going to have to find some wherewithal to do some stuff, but not in the sense of this, like just not like a flat out like, no, now you're in the middle of literally a military battle. Well, that wasn't quite what we had in mind. We thought we'd be kind of investigating and wandering through the wilds and doing stuff like that. And we're just ill-equipped to do it. In fact, in the combats that followed, my great contribution was using the aid action, I think it was called, or help, basically to help somebody else get land attacks because I couldn't do anything. I literally had nothing. I didn't have it. I don't even remember what my spell was, but it wasn't this. It wasn't something that was going to be good for that. And I had nothing. So I'm like, well, I guess I'll just use the help action or aid over and over again, it was kind of a bummer. I mean, I remember just being bummed out because I loved the premise so much. And then it was like, oh yeah, we're going to go on there. We're going to have to go. I thought like, yeah, he's going to task us or somebody's going to task us with doing something weird out and about. We'll go on this great adventure. And it was like, oh, it's combat. It's like, we're going to go in, we're going to have this nice RP kind of pitch session. And then we're going to be thrown into basically melee. Not even like, oh, you kind of got missile. It's like, it's pretty much going to be 2 melees. And I'm like, what am I going to do in these melees? Not a whole lot. And it didn't mean that it didn't necessarily, I didn't kill the campaign, though we didn't really get past it. But I remember trying to I gave the feedback like, yeah, I really thought that I just felt like this was not like what the pitch was. And I was willing to keep going. I wasn't like I'm quitting. But it was like, I did say and express like, I'm just a little bit bummed out that it kind of turned out this as opposed to whatever. But I understand what they were trying to do, which was, you're trying to give these moments like, yeah. And it could kind of backfire if the party's like, and I could see if I had that same character in this situation, go man the ballistas. I'm thinking like, I'm terrible at that. Like my dex stinks. Like I'm not, what am I doing? Man in the ballista, like why are you sitting? You've got guys who are probably trained, these ballistas, probably trained to run these ballistas. Where are those guys? And they should be doing it. I'm not sure what I have in my arsenal to fight a dragon at level 1, but it's probably not that. So it just can be, I guess, it could be an ill fit, and it can be kind of you don't want to. It's not even setting the guys up for failure, though it can feel like it. It certainly felt like I was set up to my character, through kind of no fault of their own, was sort of set up to be not have much of an option to do much. Right? Because like, oh, and if you are terrible at the ballistas and that doesn't work, then like, what do I have to do? I can just, again, use the help action. Just not as much fun. And I like that action that exists in the game, because sometimes it is all you can do, and that's okay. But remember, this is like your first thing. You kind of want to feel like I can do something. And the problem sometimes when you bring in these big beasties that you're going to have like a quick time event, which is kind of what this feels like, is that you can get somebody who's like, but I don't have, like, that's not my character's not built for the quick time event. Or you just don't feel like it is. Even if the GM's like, I'm going to fudge the numbers, or don't worry about it, it's not really going to matter. I mean, that's kind of a bummer too. It's like, it doesn't matter if you hit or miss with the ballista, because in 2 rounds, this other thing is going to happen. It's like, well, that doesn't feel great either. So just be careful. be careful. So I think my first comment and what I put in the post was just like I would just have the dragon attack, and then you have these things that are happening that allow you as the GM to mold the overall encounter. The situation. So hey, Croco. So you can have the ballista manned by the actual ballista operators firing the dragon, and you can this is where you can have some fun. I think you can really have a lot of fun with how you're describing this stuff because the party's not directly involved with the ballistas and the dragon. So you can do is you can see what the party does, and then you can kind of push them along or maneuver them or try to get them into areas without pushing them to individual actions, like without somebody saying, like, you go to the ballistas, right? Forget the ballistas. You can have the, I would say is, hey, and I'm not, again, presuming you're not, if you were writing this up for someone else, I'm not exactly sure how I would want to write all this stuff up, but basically, okay, the Lord's going to run out of this building and he's going to start giving orders, this, that, and the other. Ballistas are going to be going, and the dragon is, I don't even know if we get what kind of dragon it is, but you might put that in, or is it breathing fire? Is it breathing acid? Whatever is going on. And the party, what are they, and then it's like, what are they doing? And then you on every succeeding, if you're in combat at this point, round, can kind of use this backdrop, and you can roll, this is where you can do the kind of Gygaxian roll the dice behind the screen. They don't really mean anything, but the party hears the dice clacking. Croco asked if this dragon encounter is from the Horde of the Dragon Queen. Nope, it's from a starter scenario. Just a kind of a homebrewed starter scenario. Oh, it's the mom. Okay, so that's the other thing. See, it's Brian. That's another thing that's unclear because you talk about a lizard kind of head, and it's probably better in this instance for it just to be clear. It's a dragon head, like a young dragon. I know that by saying it's a lizard, there's a little bit of a mystery, but it seems like just say it's that dragon, because then I think it'll have a better idea of clicking. Because I think if you're the GM and you're describing it, you could describe it as a reptilian head, but I would maybe emphasize the draconic part if you don't want to just flat out say it's a young dragon. But I think it'll also be fine if you said it's a young dragon, and with the color. I mean, if you're using the kind of D&D dragon color spectrum stuff, if it's a red dragon, just say it's a red reptilian lizard like, right? I feel like for most folks they'll get, oh, it's a red dragon, young red dragon, baby red dragon kind of thing. So what I would do is I would have this kind of working as like a clock. This is your clock, and the party has a chance to do whatever they want in this space. But you can use the fact that this stuff is going on, it's a dynamic situation, to not necessarily push the party, but kind of if the party, let's say so let me give an example, right? So the lordling, the young lord, has dashed out of the tavern yelling, "Get to the ballistas! Everyone who can defend!" Right, do that, and the party's in the tavern, right? And then you learn to the party and say, okay, now everyone is, some people are scrambling for cover, some people are running here, running there. You've seen the young lord, run out of the tavern. Like, what do you do? And see what the party does. And if they kind of turtle up, if the answer is, well, we're just going to turtle up in this tavern and wait till it's over, then you could have something fun happen, like the dragon tosses a fire, breathes fire down on the tavern. Now the tavern's coming apart. Like, you can do some things, not necessarily push them, but you could say, like, okay, if you're going to turtle in the tavern, then maybe this dragon just takes out the tavern. I mean, dragon, I presume, is breathing fire everywhere. So, roll some more dice. Ho, well, look there, and then bam, the tavern's coming down. What do you do? All right, so nothing said. If you want the opportunity for the party to man the ballista, have the ballista crew killed by fire breath, then they could fire the ballistas if they want. Yes, but you have to also kind of think about, and again, it's not that you can't do it, but it becomes a thing of how did if the dragon took out the ballista crew, did it not take out the ballista also? Because ballistas tend to be made of wood and ropes and things that tend to burn. So yes, you can do that. Just keep in mind, well, how does that look? Because I guess I always just want to be careful of that you're not steering the party over much. Because even if one ballista crew gets destroyed, there's a number of guards. And that same situation calls up of the party. If I'm picturing this correctly, the ballista are up in some towers. The party's down at ground level. There are a number of guards, and folks, this is not a situation where a settlement's being attacked and they have no armed contingency. So you still end up with that problem of, okay, the dragon takes out a ballista crew. How does the players know, depending on where they are, how do they know that the ballista crew's been taken out? And then still, why is the Lord then pointing to them, randos out of nowhere, and saying, you guys go run up that tower and get on the ballista, as opposed to the folks who are already maybe there? So just, you just want to make sure and this is, to me, I think I could probably put this down as nitpicking, because I think you could get away with this a lot. But this is what this is what I get into. Is for me personally, I just want the logic to make sense. I want it to be that, and that way it helps with the party responding. And again, I guess maybe I'm just sensitive to it, where I feels like, I think I probably am sensitive to that, where it just seems like the GM's pushing us to do a particular thing, and it's sort of making that happen, as opposed to kind of laying the toys down, like, you're at the playground and you're sort of like, here are all the toys available, see what you can do. One thing you could have is have like a catapult or maybe a ballista that's on the ground, that then they could, if they run outside, they could see. So one thing you could do is, if they leave the tavern, have some kind of equipment that's on ground level, and if they look over and see that those guys there are killed, but the equipment is still in good working order, and nobody is taken up because there's too much going on, nobody has seen it, and maybe have that be something so that it's easily, they can see it. It's sort of part of everything that's going on. Maybe it could even be that they look around because I think it might be like, well, what can we do? Look around. It's like, oh, you see that this catapult, ballista, trebuchet. I don't know if I would use a trebuchet against a dragon, whatever it is, some kind of, maybe it's a ballista that's pointed up. I mean, this is all something that you could set up beforehand. If dragon attacks are a thing here, and I'm guessing they might be because a young lord went out on a hunt to kill a dragon, then you should probably add into your descriptions of all this stuff the kind of anti-dragon. Let me make a note. You probably want to add in some, like, oh yeah, there's evidence of dragon attacks. Right? We want to, these are the kind of details, this kind of signposting almost, right? So have some, I'm going to change the color here just for, there we go. Add in evidence of dragon attacks. How might the settlement culture be shaped by living near the dragons? Maybe the hunt maybe the bazaar, there's actually a theme, right? That there is a dragon, that the bazaar is not just, where do they talk about the bazaar? Here we go. Maybe it's an annual, it's the actual holiday. Maybe the actual holiday is an annual dragon hunt. That features a bazaar. And that a lot of the goods, all those carved goods are all in they're all these worm, dragon shapes, right? So the wooden goods sold have, dragon themes. I guess the goods, and then when the prince comes back, it's not just that he's coming back for some random hunt. It's like him coming back. The prince coming back is basically this is the right, the princeling's return isn't just from a random hunt, but from the ritual quest at the heart of the annual ceremony and holiday. Something like that. So now They're getting here, right? What are those traces of dragon attacks? Croco says a dedicated cow farm for dragon appeasement. I mean, maybe, but it doesn't seem like, from what we're understanding, from what's happening, that they're into appeasing the dragon. They are a warlike people. They're a warlike people. They're aggressive, right? That's totally makes it. They're like, you know what? Screw that. We're not appeasing the dragon. We're not doing like the guy, I forget the guy's name, the King and Dragon Slayer does, where he's getting the versions lined up and doing a lottery. We're taking it to where they live. The other interesting thing is that what does it say about the prince or what's happening? Does it say something? Does it say something about the princeling or the settlement that they returned with a young dragon head and not an adult? So basically, this can go any number of ways, but you could have some really fun with thinking about, well, okay, this princeling goes off on this ritual hunt that's part of this whole annual ceremony where they're basically trying to keep the dragons down. They're not a big settlement. They're not some kind of empire. They don't have the means to eradicate the dragons that live in the mountains, but they can try to keep them down a little bit. Does it say something about the prince? And we don't know we have not fleshed out this holiday, what's going on, that they got basically a baby. They went and brought back a baby, then going out and getting one of the adults. Now the baby's not going to be a threat for some years, but one could argue that you're essentially safeguarding your future. Who knows? I mean, I don't know. Dragons tend to be kind of nigh immortal, so maybe it doesn't matter. But you can say, you know what, we're getting rid of future problems by taking care of this baby now. Except that obviously we know from what's going to happen in the aftermath that now you've just ticked off an adult dragon who you may or may not be equipped to defeat, or at least even if you defeat it, which I think we can. I don't think I got to the head of the story, but we know that they do. That okay, but now it's caused a lot of damage, loss of life, loss of money, loss, repairs. Like, you've taken on a lot of damage by taking out a baby who wasn't going to probably be a threat to us for I mean, really, right, in human terms, I don't know how long a baby dragon gets to be, or whatever, an adult, but when by the time that baby dragon, if it had survived just on its own, it could be a whole generation or two or three before that dragon becomes a threat of any nature. So you've taken it out now, so maybe you say, oh, I'm saving 3 generations now. My great-great-grandkids won't have to worry about that red dragon. But now you've killed how many people, and how much have you lost to do that? It's an interesting idea. So what I'm getting at is, like, does it say something about the prince that they went after the easy quarry rather than that, or it just might be that's what they had. The mom was out, and so we kind of took that out and we came back, kind of thing. Croco says, are there any assumptions for the dragon's intelligence, resources, stuff like that, or is that out of the scope of the adventure? Croco, it's just not listed here. I don't know, Brian, you're here. What are do you have some assumptions about the dragon? And finally, just to finish it off, the dragon attack has some elements to it. The ballistas, fight in the bazaar, tower collapse where you're dodging wreckage, and then the dragon is pinned and exposed. So these are, I think they're fun. I think they play a little bit like a quick time event in a video game where you're kind of, hit A now, hit B now. So, okay, I'm not sure how the fight in the bazaar. So let me see if I'm getting the order right. So with the ballistas, you're shooting them. And it might be fun to talk about how the ballistas are doing that, like the kind of Jaws thing. Are they shooting ballistas that have, say, ropes attached with heavy rocks? Because the thing, if you remember, I assume you've seen Jaws, but in Jaws, Quint, who is the fisherman that finally gets hired to take down the fish, his strategy is to force these big sharks up to the surface by shooting them essentially with what would be kind of a little like a modern sort of ballista, shooting them with these little harpoons that are tied to lines that are tied to these barrels. And this is supposed to and so you put these barrels. I don't even know if this is a real technique, if it was made up for the movie or the book that the movie was based on. I have no idea. But the barrels it was drag. The shark can't go down as deep as it might like, and it's kind of forcing the fish up towards the surface and just tiring it out. And as you keep hitting barrels, of course, Jaws being sort of a super. Yes, it is a real fish, but it's kind of supernatural in a way. So the barrels never really do the things that they're supposed to do, and it's one of those fun moments where they got all these barrels on it, and the fish just go and Jaws just goes down, and the barrels just drop, and of course everyone's like, "Oh, what the." This is our plan. Like, what do we do in the barrels? And then it was also a great, not to go off on Jaws too much, but it was also a great thing where it was that forewarning that something really bad's going to happen when the barrels suddenly come back, because the fish has returned and you see the barrels. In any case, presuming that these ballistas are rigged with something to help bring it down, so the ballistas bring it, and we're saying for sure that the dragon's going to fall into the bazaar. So that's where the dragon's going to land, in the bazaar. And then you're going to work with groups to surround it. The party might not, I just keep thinking about it. I say, well, what if the party, yeah, maybe they will, maybe they won't, but whatever. You can just I think you can kind of, that's fine. Like the party's there. Presumably they're not crushed underneath the dragon when it falls. And so now there'll be groups who are kind of around it with, I'm guessing, long spears or something, and they'll start poking at it. Now, the tower collapse, I guess, is one of these ballista towers that's going to collapse, and the party needs to get out of the way of the wreckage, but the wreckage is going to nail the dragon even more, and now you have this moment of glory where I guess you or somebody else can come in and stab the end of the dragon. I think it's fine, right? I think when it gets to the fact that the dragon's been shot down into the fort, I mean, it's convenient, but it's not like it couldn't happen. Then I think these things make sense. You can have the dragon flailing around and blowing fire, and of course, it would not be unreasonable to think that somewhere along the way, if not before that one of these towers with the ballista is starting to crumble, or its supports are giving out, and so there's this idea that it might collapse. I think it might be something that, depending on how it's working out, to hint the party that it looks like this is going to happen, and sort of set up so maybe they can be the ones to collapse the tower. I mean, I want it to be their idea. I wouldn't want somebody saying, you collapse the tower, but it could be one of those fun things if you kind of set it up that this is happening, that the party could be like, ooh, if we take out this last support or this one where we can hit, we'll take out this leg so that it collapses this way and goes across the dragon. I mean, kind of all the better for that. And then, pinned and exposed, that's fine. Dragon is finito. Krakow says, could have the dragon run away. If it goes down, it doesn't die, then the players could track it to its lair for a follow-up adventure. I think there is. So we have, I mean, that's not bad at all. Though again, like, the party doesn't seem to me like, I think the depending on how you set up, like right now, the party setup is they're not part of the power structure here. So I have to ask myself, why is the party being set out here? I mean, they could offer up their services. That could be a fun thing. And this would totally work with some tables if they might offer, like, oh, the thing's gotten away, everyone's wrecked, and they decide to go up to the princeling and saying, like, hey, like, we came here for some adventure, and obviously some adventure came for you, then we'll go do it. Like, I could, some groups will be like, they'll be up there and be really mercenary about it and say, hey, Lordling, I know you just got your settlement shot to crap and all this stuff, but that dragon's still out there, so we'll help you out, for a price. But you might want to set up, if the party is going to become basically hirelings of this lordling, where he's sending them off to do stuff, use some of the opportunity before to kind of set that up. If the party doesn't take the forward, and again, some parties will be like, "Ooh, there's a lordling, Lord, how can we be in your service?" kind of thing. Like, that could totally happen too, where they'll just walk up to this guy and say, "Hey, we need a job. Give us a job. Do you have a job? Please, job." In which case, you're all set. It could even be something where the lordling's like, I'm not, come back and see me on Monday. We're in the middle of a festival. And then all this stuff happens. And he's like, hey, you know what? You wanted a job, right? Well, here's your job. So you could absolutely do that. In this case, we've got a different kind of aftermath. The lordling emerges badly wounded, thanks you, and asks you that you please travel through the mountains and tell his father what happened, gives you horses, and starts working to rebuild his home. These people are nothing if not survivors. So this makes me think that this guy's actually the head honcho of this place. Like this is a son, and this is his settlement, and then this is part of some kind of kingdom, duchy, whatever, some kind of overall nation. Probably is not the right word. State, something. And then, hey, got to go tell my dad. I still not sure why he's sending you, but that's kind of standard D&D fare. You adventurers, I'm not going to send an actual messenger, but I'm going to send you ragtag group. I definitely think that depending on how the party operates during this thing, they may show themselves to be people of quality. And I think I would play that up. Like I would definitely look and say, hey, if the party really does avail themselves of all this stuff, if they get out there and they're fighting the dragon and they're manning the ballista and they're doing all this stuff, then this guy's definitely going to look at them and saying, well, you guys are of note and my guys are all wrecked and I don't have a messenger. So, hey, go here to do this thing. And I will equip you with horses and whatnot. In that case, it really just makes even more sense with this added context at the end that the people would know who this guy is. He's not just a young guy. He's the Baron. He's the Baron of Evil Inn or whatever. He's the local lord. Like he is the guy, and he's young. And I don't know if that's meaningful or not that he's young. Is he really young? Is it weird, interesting that he's been given control of this court? Like that's another kind of interesting thing and an angle that you could go kind of call into with the man with the man with the mustache. Where is he? Where do they have that? Where was the mustache guy? Oh no, that's Arrivals right here. There it is. Who is the pompous looking guy, right? So who is the pompous looking man? Oops. Is he an antagonist to the young lord? Is it the lord being so? I mean, the word used in the set writing is young man. Is he? It could be an interesting part of that first intro. Could be this kind of shock, or at least it's unusual that the lord of this whole thing is the guy so young. Like, is that also saying something about the situation, that this is not someone who's a older person or even in their adulthood and married and whatever, but this is a young like a young person. A young person going off and doing the hunt, a young person making that choice to grab the baby is interesting potentially, and then also that they are in charge, that they are this young person giving orders to older folk. And is the pompous looking guy somebody who has it in for them, is some kind of competitor? You want to, I think, play, have some fun with that, play that, make it, certainly moving forward, even if it's just all they do in this starting point is just glare at the party members for not getting out of their way. Make that person into somebody in an opposing figure, character, faction, whatever. Brian says, I wanted to be that his dad was doing some kind of political talks in a city and left the son in charge instead. Okay. I think you probably want to make that, again, that's something you probably just want to be clear about. You don't need to, I think some of the stuff I just don't think you have to hide, or at least make it stuff that's discoverable. So the party, when they're asking these questions, but I don't think I would hide it really. If that is true, again, being a young lord, that's still a really interesting thing. And there would probably be some folks who would not be happy with the fact that this young guy was left in charge and not them. The uncles, the older advisors. It's a decision. It is a real choice. And I think I would dig into, why do they make that? Why does the king make that choice? Does that say something about his son, being that he's just very good? What does it say about all of them? What does it say about all these different characters, these different people that the king left to go? Remember, there's this holiday happening, and I'm playing up the bazaar as being a bigger holiday and a more interesting, or I don't say interesting, that's not the right word, just a more important thing on the calendar, and as opposed to just kind of a bazaar. Not that the bazaar is unimportant, because I think you said it's just once a year, right? It's just one year thing. So for for the king to leave during this thing that's only happens once a year, that means that whatever the king is dealing with should be a big thing, capital B, capital I, capital G, because this is where they need to be. And if I were to run with my idea that not only is it just the bazaar, it's not just the bazaar, but it's this whole dragon hunting thing, then the fact that the king's not here to take part in either of those things is like super big deal. Super big deal. So why is that, right? That kind of sets up, that doesn't really mean anything for this little bit here, but you're setting up your more world. Like what if we're looking at what's coming afterwards, then that becomes a big element of what's happening in the world. What's going on, that this kind of wider world of, okay, the king couldn't be here during this holiday. That's a big deal. And if the son's in charge, and this is where it almost makes more, I don't want to play my idea, it makes more sense, but if the son's in charge during this absence, during a festival like this, or even just the bazaar, he should not be hunting on that day. You can't take the one, presumably the heir, to go off and do something, go hunting young baby dragons when they're in charge for the day, unless it's kind of, there's a mandate to do that. And I think that plays into my suggestion, which is to make it, this is like a really big, almost, not even almost, a kind of holy ceremony that has these elements attached to it. And therefore, the Lord must do that because that is what the kings of this place do. And since the father's not here, this person has to go do it. And there's no way around it. They have to do it. And then play up this stuff. Play up with some of these, and these kind of, you just kind of mention them. Play these things up. And if, as Brian says, when the king's away, the prince will play. And if that's how it is, then that also says some things which you want to play into. Well, if the prince was supposed to stay home and they didn't because they're a giant chud and they just wanted to go, they didn't understand the importance of being there for the people, and then they go off in this hunt and antagonize a dragon, that says a lot of stuff too. I mean, that in some ways, that's just as fascinating if you say, oh, so he was supposed to stay home and then he didn't, and then he went and antagonized a dragon, that, yeah, they ended up killing the dragon, but now they've wrecked the whole key place is if not destroyed, then seriously damaged. Wow, that's a lot of stuff. That's a lot of things that this prince, this young lord, is really a bad dude. And do they learn the lesson after that? Like, who are they? Maybe they're the antagonist they just don't give a crap. They don't see the error in their ways, or why they shouldn't be doing those things. But you just take those decisions, right? Think about like the wise. And even though they won't all enter into what the party's dealing with here, they certainly enter into your characterizations. If the lordling is some kind of arrogant little twat, then how they interact in the tavern and these other things changes. And maybe in that instance, if he's in the thing, instead of saying like somebody give him a toast, if the lordling's like, I want somebody to give me a toast, right? I did this great thing and I need to be toasted, and then he points at someone randomly to give him a toast, that almost makes more sense. You're like, wow, you're just an arrogant jerk, and you're just being an a-hole. Like, then it kind of makes sense. But if he's like in the way it's written, makes it seem like he's a good person, he wouldn't do that. But if he's an arrogant jerk, he might. And then if he is an arrogant jerk, then maybe he doesn't run out of the tavern giving orders. Maybe he kind of slinks away and hides, and then the party or someone else is left to try to pick up the pieces, and then the party could step up potentially and start trying to get some order going on because they see what's happening. And maybe if they don't do it, then maybe some old grizzled guard who's actually a veteran who knows what's up then starts giving orders, right? All these things change kind of how the thing plays out, and of course will change what the impetus is. But if we're ending this, if the goal is to end this with the party in the lordling's employment, we want to set up, how does this happen? How do we get from them showing up at this keep in this settlement to now you're working for the lordling now. Now you're working for the lordling. And it's not difficult to get there. And like, I've been kind of nitpicking it, like, well, it could kind of clean up the logic a little bit. It could be as like, hey, at the end of the whole thing, hey, who's in good shape, who I can, because one thing you say with the party is that being that they're not from this place and they don't have anything here, then they're also free to leave, because everyone else might be like, we got to repair our homes, bury our dead, all this stuff. And the prince or the lordling, the young lord, could look around and say, who can I spare? I can't spare anybody. Would you guys be willing to do it? Yay or nay, and then start off, right? And then, of course, we're assuming the party's going to be like, yeah, we'll do it, right? What else are we here to do? We're here to game. We're here to do it. Brian says, I could see him being a turd and having a turn when he realizes the wreckage he's caused and takes some responsibility in rebuilding. Yeah, you could, if you wanted to, have like a little arc, a little narrative for this prince as he this lordling, as he kind of goes through this thing, and this becomes like a opening of their eyes. There's a ton of ways to play. There's definitely no right way to play it, but and these, of course, are just my suggestions for myself. I think you could totally play it out as it was originally written, and I think it would work fine. I think a lot of stuff that I'm kind of niggling and nitpicking on and kind of picking at would probably not, it's not really important. I think a lot of folks just kind of get in the groove of it and be like, okay, yeah, we're doing this, we're doing that. I just like to I like to dance on those kind of details because those are the kind of things I appreciate. And another thing, if you're just hell-bent to leather that you want to get them, and another thing to consider, I guess I should say, is that if the most important thing is to make sure that they're on this this quest, it's not fun. It's not as fun as doing this kind of setup, but you can also just put them on the quest. This stuff could all be kind of background that you give them, and that session 1 is you've been given horses and a letter to give to the king and go. Because ultimately, one thing you're sort of doing is we are baking in implicitly the option that the players go, nah, sorry. Maybe we want to go to those mountains. Maybe we want to track down some more dragons. Oh, you got a baby dragon? I'd like to go catch me a baby dragon. Like there's always that choice that the players goes like, not into it. So if you really, and I would say this like on a one shot, because I've seen it happen. I've talked about my frustrations of seeing people just kind of just go sideways on an adventure because it feels like they've been given that option. If you are, and I'm not really saying this for you, Brian, presumably, but for others out there, sometimes the best thing, even though this is a cool intro and there's a dragon fight and these elements, if you're at all concerned that the real thing where the whole rest of your content is in this adventure, traveling through the mountains to take the message, and you're afraid at all that the party's going to go sideways and decide to go, nah, then don't give them the option. Remember, don't give them the option if you don't want them to potentially say no. And they could certainly end up saying no. I mean, I think it would be foolish and you want to throw something at them, but, and I've seen it happen at one shots even. I think I even mentioned it in my frustrations watching that one game of Claricon where a couple players just decided to take the whole thing in the opening intro scene, just decided to just take the whole thing and hijack it to go nowhere with it, seemingly just because they could. So if you think it'll never happen to you, it can happen. I presume it won't happen with kind of your standard regular group. I hope that they would take it in good nature and say, yes, we'll do this thing. But just keep in mind, if the important thing is to get them to this point and you don't want there to be a chance that they don't, then don't give them the option. You could give all this to them as a little write-up in a little paragraph and then say, hey, at the end of the day, the prince who thanks you, or this lordling thanks you and says, please, I need you to do something. I can't spare any men, so you must do this for me. And, half money here, and I'm sure my father will give you double what I'm giving you now when this message is seen into his hands. So take it, and the adventure begins. Whew. All right. Well, thanks, Brian, for sharing this. It was fun. I think there's it's got a lot of good elements to it, and it certainly triggered my imagination, and inspiring. It was inspiring to read. So that's all you can ask for, right? I think it's things to inspire you, and this certainly did that. I gotta run. I gotta take my daughter to the dentist imminently, so I'm on the clock. That is not my own. So enjoy the rest of your day, night, whenever you end up watching or listening to this. I will add a link to the forum post with stuff in the as a comment. It is already in the show notes, and it is pinned to the top of the chat if you want to check it out. And if you want to follow along and join the community and join the conversations about this, love to have you. That's all I got, folks. Game on, everybody, and I'll talk to you later.